I spent the first few hours of Elden Ring really struggling. I'd picked Vanguard class and it felt like I couldn't do any damage to bosses, it was taking ages to kill them, and I was relying a lot more on luck than anything else to get by. Then I found this sword. It's absolutely incredible. I've been ploughing through bosses today on stream. I just literally went through about 5 or 6 bosses on an hour-and-a-half stream, where I've been slicing through them just because it does such a huge amount of damage and is so easy to use. Yes, it's a little bit slow and it can be a little bit of a pain if you miss an attack, but as long as you're hitting them, it feels so much stronger than the longsword I started with. So this weapon is called Bloodhound Fang, and you can get it really early on in the game. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly where you have to go, what you have to do, how you have to fight the boss, and my kind of tips on how to beat that boss, because it is kind of tricky. So don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. This is actually my second channel. My main channel is Geeky Pastimes, where I do lots of things about first-person shooters, mostly like Warzone, Call of Duty Zombies, Destiny, things like that. So this is my second channel I'm trying to get off the ground, so your subscriptions, your likes, all of that stuff really does help me out a bunch. The weapon we're talking about in this video is called Bloodhound Fang. This has got me through basically every other boss fight in Limgrave. I found it so easy to use, and it does an absolute ton of damage. First of all, you do need 18 strength and 17 dexterity to use it, so it does have kind of high requirements if you weren't built that way, but if you went for a melee build from the beginning, you probably have something close to that, so it shouldn't be too bad. The weapon scales with a D for strength and a C for dexterity, so what that means is your points that are in strength will be worth slightly less than your points for dexterity when it's working out what your bonus damage with this sword will be. Most of my points are in strength, but it still does an absolute ton of damage. When you're attacking with it, it is kind of slow, and that's probably the biggest thing to remember, but it has a couple of amazing features. First of all, you'll notice any smaller enemies, it staggers. So you can actually knock some enemies out of the air, the ones that fly at you, even some of the ones that leap at you, you can just smack them back with it. Some of the enemies you can just stun lock, so as long as you keep on hitting them, if you've got enough stamina, you can keep them doing that. And there's not many of the smaller enemies that will take more than 2 or 3 hits with this thing to kill. Another great thing about it is that it has a bleed effect, so as you're attacking enemies it will be building up this bleed on them, which means you'll be doing damage even when you have to back off, which is invaluable in some boss fights. It is a great sword, so you probably want to be using it two-handed, so it means you're not going to be using a shield with it, but to be honest, because you're constantly stunning stuff and you're constantly smacking stuff down and knocking it down, you don't really need a shield with this that much. So to get Bloodhound's Fang, you need to kill Bloodhound Knight Darriwill, and he's hanging out in the Forlorn Hound Everjail. Now this is actually really close to where you start, so where you first come out into the world, you can just go southeast a little bit to find it. On the map it appears as like a big dark circle, and there's one of the sites of grace just a little bit north of it that you can go to rest up at, etc, fill up your flasks and everything, then head on south. There'll be loads of enemies around, those kind of stone things that are around graveyards that explode if you get too close to them. You can just walk past them, you can completely ignore them. And one really nice thing about this boss, and there's kind of good news and bad news, but the nice thing about this boss is that whenever you die fighting it, your runes and everything will just be left outside. You don't even need to go back in to get them back again. So it's really safe. You can go back as many times as you want. That's not a problem. And there's one of those respawn things right next to it, so you don't even have to walk very far. Now on to the less so nice news about this boss. You can't use any summons in there, you can't use your spirit summoning belt at all, and you can't use multiplayer, so you can't get any help. This is just going to be a one-on-one fight between you and the Bloodhound Knight Darriwill. So when you first start fighting against this boss, you'll realise he's super aggressive, he does these big sweeping attacks, and he kind of teleports when he moves, which makes him really hard to hit if you're using spells or bows and arrows or anything like that. He feels really challenging as well, because when he attacks you, he actually puts on this like blood loss thing. He attacks you with a bleed, that if that builds up too much, it'll drain a whole bunch of your health. Now thankfully, this bleed stacks quite slowly, so what you can do is block a lot of his attacks using a shield or something like that, and while the bleed will pass through it, if you block a couple of attacks and then back off for a few seconds, the bleed will just disappear and then it will be completely reset, so you won't end up bleeding too much. Here I'm using the twin blade to attack him, but I think any melee weapon would work. Really what I suggest is take in a shield, try to block a couple of attacks and then get an attack in of your own, and then just roll away and back off to make sure that bleed goes away. I did try dodging a lot. That was some of the advice I had for this boss, like try dodging to the side, try dodging through him, all stuff like that. For me, that didn't work very well. I found it really hard. I'd constantly get caught by the end of his blade, and I found it really hard to predict exactly when he was going to attack. With the shield, his attacks don't actually take off that much stamina from you when they hit you, so normally you can block the 2 or 3 attacks he does. I think he only ever does like 3 attacks in one chain, and then you can roll away without too much of a problem. And just take it slow, like it's not like he has an extra phase, he doesn't get harder later on or anything like that. You can just keep on chipping away when you notice an opening. Whenever he does the attack where he sort of drags his weapon along the ground, and then he does an uppercut when he gets next to you, that was one of the easiest opportunities to attack, so you can just kind of roll to the side when he does that, and then get a couple of hits on his back. Then you can actually do a ton of damage then. He doesn't have too much health as it is, so if you've got a weapon that's maybe been upgraded once or twice, you shouldn't find him too difficult. I'm saying that, it did take me like 2 days to fight him. The first time I did it, I just gave up because I found him too challenging. But then I went back the second day, and it is worth it. So in case it helps anyone, I will include in this video the whole of my fight against him so you can see how I did it using that twin blade. It really did feel quite easy once I started using the shield. Like the shield was the key to it for me. So keep on persevering and hopefully you'll get through. And then you can have an absolute ton of fun using Bloodhound's Fang to go and kill every other boss that you see. If you found this video useful, if it's helped you, if you've managed to get Bloodhound's Fang with it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with all of your friends, let them know about it. Check out my other videos in Elden Ring on this channel, and check out my main video, Geeky Pastimes. Who's giving me advice the other day was saying don't bother using a shield, but... Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Got him! Oh. Bloodhound's Fang. See?